All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and I'm sure we're going to have people popping in as we go. And feel free to put your name and your pronouns in the chat, or you could also rename yourself. It's been a new practice that I've been experiencing in other spaces, so people know, have your next to your name, have your pronouns listed. So I'm going to start off and just thank everyone here and just let everyone know that my name is Shimona Moreno. I use she, her pronouns. And I work for 350 Seattle in a new role. This happened just in March as the Director of Equity and Volunteer Engagement. So yay for me. Feel free to drop appreciation for me in the chat. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. And I kind of I've been doing a lot of thinking in terms of land acknowledgements. I've been talking with other friends about how to do them in meaningful and heartfelt ways, instead of it becoming like this rote obligation that we've often felt in some of these spaces that I've noticed. It's just like something that we have to do because we were asked to do it. And I've been challenging myself to move past that thinking and just how do I approach land acknowledgements in a way that actually engages with the history of it and the truth of it. And I was looking on the Duwamish Tribe's website, and I kind of resonated with this one particular paragraph that they have that I want to share with you all. And it goes, "It is important to note that this kind of acknowledgement is not a new practice developed by colonial institutions. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land on which we work and live. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth." And just the last part, inviting the truth, is really important for me. The truth of how many of us who are not Indigenous to this land got to this land, and the truth for the people who have been here the whole time fighting against erasure, of just being we are here, we are thriving, we are fighting for the rights of our people and of the land and of our animal brothers and sisters. And so I've just been really sitting with that and working on different ways of that I can honor and invite truth. And I would love for people to spend some time doing their own education. And when I say their own education, I really mean doing your own research, your own questioning and checking in, and not just going and just asking someone what to do. I think really engage with the work yourself, because that's a really good first step. And I think the really great place to start is looking up nativeland.ca, where you can look up whose land you're occupying. And even on there's other links to the treaties that were signed, and there's even some helpful information about how to give land acknowledgements and further resources. And I will drop the link in the chat for those of you who probably don't have it. And I also want to acknowledge the Duwamish Tribe. We like to specifically name them here because to this day they are fighting to still be federally recognized. And for those who want to read more about that fight and possibly contribute, if they have the funds or the means, to Real Rent Duwamish. And I dropped the link in the chat for there. So thank you. And also I invite, if anybody has resources they'd love to share, please share them in the chat. And if you have been definitely looking for more storytelling ways, it's not really my forte to do that, but I'm trying to get better. And so if people have stories they want to share in the future, I would love to hear them. All right, so I'm going to move us on to some Zoom logistics. for those of you, it's so weird because there's no one I can't, oh, okay, I'm on the wrong page. It was weird not seeing any faces and just a wall of names. So I'm going to move to the page where I can see faces. And that feels a little bit more better for me. Okay, good. I got some Zoom logistics for y'all. And I would just like to let everyone know that we are recording this general meeting. It will be edited out after this, and we'll have the recording available for people to look at later on. But if you do not want your face on in that recording, we do try to edit out as many people's faces as possible. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, you can turn off your video to really ensure that you're not on that recording. We do have closed captioning. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is an option for closed captioning. If you select the little upwards caret or arrow, some people, it says show subtitles, and you can select show subtitles and the subtitles should be live. And let me know if that is not working for some reason. I would really appreciate it if people kept on mute, especially when people are speaking, and definitely put any questions that you might have into the chat. And also for appreciation, drop a ++ if you're like, oh, I totally resonate with what is being said. Like, hell yeah, that's like, I love what you're talking about. I love seeing ++s in the chat. Like, oh, everyone's listening. And my last thing for y'all is, yeah, we're going to follow up with resources and a recording and an email by Friday evening. We'll try our hardest to get it out by Friday evening, but if not, look for it on Monday. And with that, I would like to further ground us in this space like we normally do at general meetings by transitioning to singing a song. And we have Bex here with us from the People's Echo to lead us in that song. Take it away, Bex.
Thank you, Shimona. Hi, everyone. My name's Bex. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. I just want to mention I am part of the People's Echo. We are a really awesome group of song singers that would love to have you sing with us. Our mission is to energize and bring joy to our interwoven movements for social and climate justice by sharing out songs that inspire change and connect people to themselves, to each other, and to our planet. So grateful to be here tonight. I'm gonna sing a song and I hope that you'll sing along with me. You're on mute, so no one can hear you. It doesn't matter if you think you sound good or not, you sound great. So this song is called How. I'm gonna drop the lyrics into the chat. This was collaboratively caught by the song catchers of the People's Echo. Someone brought a melody, some other people brought the words, and this little song was born. It's pretty simple. I think you'll catch on pretty quickly. I've got a little loop, and it goes a little something like this. How, 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 oh, tell me how to bring the fire, how to build a movement, how to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression. Oh, tell me how to bring the fire, how to build a movement, how to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression. Oh, tell me how to bring the fire, how to build a movement, how to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression. Oh, are you singing? How to build a movement, how to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression. Oh, to bring the fire, to build a movement, to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression, to bring the fire, to build a movement, to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression, to bring the fire, to build a movement, to fight for justice, fight for freedom from oppression. Oh, tell me how. 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 Oh, tell me how.
Yay! Throw up your, applause, hit up those Zoom reactions. Yes, in the chat, love, lots of love. Bex, I love hearing you sing. My gosh.
Well, I love singing, so hit me up. I might do it again.
Yes. All right, now that we're energized and ready, we are going to be here to talk with Neil and Stacy and learn more. And we have special guests, Benita Moore and Darren Moore. So exciting and so lovely to see you. It's been, oh my God, it's been like a year, I guess. That's one day I will see you all in person. And so let's talk about new rules for fossil fuels. Thanks. Sorry guys. I got them my No New Youth Jail shirt on, so I got a little confused.
All right, thanks, Shimona. And thanks, Bex. I really can't wait till we're all out in the streets singing together again. So let me share. And I want to start by showing a video for this new campaign that was made by our friends in 350 Tacoma. So as introduction, let me play this first.
Coal terminals, methanol plants, LNG facilities. Are you tired of fighting off one fossil fuel project after another? So are we. The Department of Ecology is creating new rules for evaluating fossil fuel projects. And this is a potentially game-changing opportunity. Now is our chance to ensure that the rules prioritize community health and safety over profits. Use best available science, respect treaty rights, and center frontline communities. We can start submitting comments now and need everybody ready for May, when Ecology will hold a public hearing. We want to turn out in force. So we need your help to spread the word, to comment now, and to speak up in May. Take action today to stop toxic fossil fuels tomorrow.
So you may have recognized some of the campaigns that were shown in that video, and they're all part of what's called the Thin Green Line, which is the resistance to fossil fuel expansion that's taken place in the Northwest over the past 10 years or so. And the reason for that is because during that time, oil companies really doubled down on fracking, and it unleashed an enormous amount of oil and gas, and they were trying to find new markets for it. They really wanted to go overseas to sell as much as possible, and the easiest way for them to do that would have been to go through the Northwest, because that would enable them to reach the emerging markets. And so there's been huge pressure on this area to build up these massive export terminals. And they really are massive. If built, several of them would have been the largest in all of North America. So they had plans on turning us into a major fossil fuel export hub. And we've been able to hold them off. But it's taken a lot of time and energy. And so we have a chance now to get ahead of that and to actually define some rules by which these would be evaluated that would prevent them from being proposed in the first place. And this started a little over a year ago when Governor Inslee asked the Department of Ecology to standardize these rules. And I give most of the credit for this to our relentless bird dogging of Inslee. He did not like that, and it made him look bad when he was trying to run for president and brag about what a great climate governor he was. And so he really wanted these projects to stop. And so I think that was the intention behind this, was he is hoping that they can set rules in such a way that these projects don't keep happening. So we really are being set up for success here, in that we're almost being invited to help write rules that keep fossil fuel projects out. And so here are some of the things that he recommended that they incorporate into the rules. And they're good, but they're also a little bit vague. So it all depends on how ecology interprets the rules. And so we're seeing this as a huge opportunity. If we get strong rules, they won't be able to propose these projects. There's no way any of them would go forward if the rules were strong enough. But on the flip side, there is a danger here, in that if ecology doesn't hear from us, and they only hear from industry, and they actually write rules that are intentionally weak, then that takes away our ability to argue against them. Right now, because of that ambiguity, they do undercount their climate impact, but we're able to go to hearings and say, no, it should be higher for these reasons. But if weak rules were written into law, we would lose the ability to do that. So it's very important that we show up and let the Department of Ecology know what kind of rules we need. And so the timeline for that is pretty short. We only have really the next 5 or 6 months. And the important thing to note here is the public hearing in May. That's really where we need the big turnout, and that's where we're going to have the most impact. And we only get one. There's not a series of public hearings and a series of drafts. They're going to have a draft ready in April. They have one public hearing, and then based on that, they're going to create the rule, and then it becomes law. And so starting October, all new projects are going to be evaluated against this rule. So I want to start by giving an example of why it's important that we set the rules in a way that shows the true climate impacts. And so I want to use an example that some of you might be familiar with, which is methanol. That's something that we've been fighting off for a full 7 years, which is another good example of how much energy it takes to stop these, even though we have been successful at it. So originally, the company that was proposing this had to create something called an environmental impact statement. And that is their assessment of all of the environmental impacts, and also it includes what the climate impacts are going to be. And so what they said is it's just going to be this teeny little amount right here. Hardly even worth worrying about. And so Department of Ecology looked at that and said, okay, I see what you're doing here. You're only counting the emissions that occur on your property, which is not the way to evaluate a project. You're gonna drive up fracking an enormous amount for methanol. That was a huge project. So that's gonna drive a huge amount of fracking that needs to be counted. And after it leaves the facility, it's going to be converted into plastics. That has a climate footprint. Some of it's going to be burned for fuel, and you're not counting that. So you need to go back and rewrite this and take into account all of the climate pollution from the entire project. And so they did that, and they came up with this number, quite a bit higher. So they said, all right, we've accounted for the upstream and downstream. Yes, we admit there's quite a lot of pollution, but you could imagine something worse. So can we still have our permit? And Ecology said, no, you can't, because we think you're still undercounting. We think you're still fudging the numbers, hiding some of the real impacts. So we're going to take over the process and do this for you. And so they did. They spent another year rewriting that part of the EIS. And what they came up with was a figure that's substantially higher. And that was enough to kill the project. So that's what often happens with these, is the emission numbers keep going up, in part because we're showing up at hearings and saying that they're trying to play these games with numbers. And we're often able to argue that successfully. It drives the emission levels up to a point where they recognize, yeah, this is the true impact of the project, and that's too much. That's not compatible with Washington state climate goals. So in the case of methanol, we were able to do that to kill off the project. But that was because the Department of Ecology was involved. They're not involved with all of them. So that's why it's really important that we have statewide rules, so that what happened here would be the same kind of accounting that all projects would be required to use. And so probably where we're going to have the best effect is arguing for strong rules around best available science. That's where we can really change the way that the emissions from these projects are represented. And it breaks down into a couple of different points. One is we're going to argue they have to use the latest climate data. And that's something that they've been doing for the past couple of projects. And it's really indefensible, but what they have done, there's a report that comes out from the international scientific community every 7 or 8 years. And that gives the state of current climate science and includes the global warming potential for methane and other gases. And so they came out with one in 2014 and said, this is how harmful methane is. And industry didn't use that. They went all the way back to 2007 to use that number because it was lower and they liked that better. And there's no rule saying they can't do that. So that's what they did. And so that's one of the things we want to have in the rules is, no, you can't just pick whatever number you like. You have to use current climate science. And the second is the leak rate. And that is probably the most important of all of them. And it's because there is a nationally set accepted leak rate, but it's extremely low. And the reason for that is the way it was originally calculated. The EPA tried to determine how much methane is leaking. And that's hugely important because for natural gas projects, most of the climate impact is from methane that leaks throughout the entire process. And so the amount that leaks really determines the overall impact of the project to a large degree. And so when the EPA was trying to figure out what that leak rate is, they didn't have the resources to go and do surveys and take their own inventory. So what they did essentially is send questionnaires to the fossil fuel industry, saying things like, what is your maintenance schedule like? And what is your procedure for repairing leaks? And what's the equipment that you use when you're fracking? And so based on the answers to those questionnaires, they totaled all that information and came up with what they think the leak rate would be. And of course, industry answered the questionnaire and said, well, we've maintained everything based on the accepted schedule. And as soon as we find leaks, of course, we fix them immediately because we care about community safety. And when we're fracking, obviously we're collecting all the methane because it would be irresponsible not to do that. And not surprisingly, people didn't really believe that. And so scientists started flying planes over fracking sites to actually measure the methane that was leaking. And they found, yes, it's quite a bit higher than industry claimed. And it's gone back and forth, the debate about exactly how to interpret that data, but it's converging on about twice what the EPA's is. And so we should be able to argue that it should be set substantially higher than it is now, but especially here in the Northwest, because here industry is using a value that's even lower than what the EPA uses. And they're getting away with that because they're saying the gas is being fracked in Canada and they don't even have an established leak rate there. So we're just going to assume it's really low. So this would make an enormous difference. If they had to account for the actual amount of methane that's leaking, then it would show these projects are much worse than they're letting on. And then the third is the 20-year impact versus the 100-year. And that's extremely important because the 100-year is a national standard. That's what's always used. But with methane, that is a short-lived gas. And so most of its impact is felt over the next 20 years. And that's becoming increasingly important because we only have 20 years to solve climate change. We have less than that. We need to substantially reduce emissions over the next decade. And if we don't get that right, it doesn't matter what's happening in 100 years. So as we're approaching the really dangerous climate tipping points, we have to be looking at what the immediate impact is of these projects and the methane that's leaking. So I want to give another example that will show what would happen if these rules, if we got strong rules and these were in effect. And so this is another project you might be familiar with. This is a liquefied natural gas plant that's being proposed in Tacoma. And unfortunately, the rules wouldn't apply to this. It's not retroactive, but I do want to show what would happen if these rules were in effect and a similar project were proposed. So the purpose of this project is to substitute the current fuel used in shipping for some of the ships that bunker in Tacoma. And so bunker fuel is essentially a really dirty form of oil. So it already has a significant climate impact. And so what they're claiming is that LNG would be better for the climate. And you can see here, it's not much better, but but that's what their EIS says, and it hasn't been successfully challenged. And so they can make the argument that this is better for the climate. And that's why we're doing it, because we care about the environment and we're trying to clean things up. But if we got some of these rules, they wouldn't be able to make that claim anymore. If we just got that first one where they have to use current science, which seems like kind of a no-brainer, then you see it goes up. And it doesn't go up a lot. This is, there wasn't a huge change between 2007 and 2014, but it does go up, and it actually makes it so that now the project is worse than what they're replacing. And so that takes away their argument. They're no longer able to say, we're doing this because we care about the climate. They have to admit, okay, we're just doing it for the money. And if they had to admit that, it's possibly a little bit harder for them to get that permit. And because they've been able to say it's slightly better for the climate, that may be why they've been able to get all of the permits so far. And so by taking away that argument, it makes it more difficult for them. But that is just one of the rules. So this is the same graph. This is bunker fuel compared to LNG, just with that one change, the most recent data. And so I want to show what happens if we get a more reasonable leak rate. And I think twice what they're using right now would be very reasonable. And if we did that, then you see it goes way up. It's substantially worse than what's being used right now. So if they had to disclose that, yeah, the climate impact is actually 30% worse if we do this than if we don't do anything, very unlikely that they would get the permits. So that by itself, I think would probably kill this project. And if we look at the 20-year, let me show you what impact that has. That has an enormous impact. And it's because methane is that much worse over 20 years. And I have to emphasize, we're not going to get them to use 20 years exclusively. What we're hopefully going to get is forcing them to disclose both impacts. But having the number for the 20-year impact gives us the ability to go and argue that this is what the impact is while we're trying to get climate change under control. And this is much worse than any alternatives that it's replacing. And one of the good things about this, even though this wouldn't apply necessarily to new gas plants or to other places where we use natural gas, having the precedent that we now look at the 20-year impact also makes it a lot easier for us to argue against new gas plants and to argue for things like pulling gas out of buildings, because it's really the 20-year impact that is so significant with methane. And that is significantly diluted and undercounted with the 100-year estimate. So that's a really important role that we want to argue for also. So I want to return to this slide. So this is what we want. We want them to do, to set strong rules for all of these categories. But we actually don't need to go to ecology and argue for any of these things. Really, if we, like I said, we're set up for success with this. If we just show up and show some interest, we're likely to get all of these. There's just no way that industry is going to be able to keep getting away with using old data. It's almost guaranteed that we're going to get that one. The leak rate, what they're using is so ridiculously low right now. There's no way that Ecology isn't going to set something that's quite a bit higher than it is right now. And 20-year, since we're only asking for it in addition to 100-year, likely that we're going to get that too. So you might be wondering why we're even having this campaign then and putting videos together and trying to get people to come to the hearings. And it's because we do need to show up, but we don't really need to make these points. What we need to do is show up and talk to them about what is not being included in the rules. And that is things like tribal consultation, community impacts, because even if you accepted the numbers for LNG and that it was slightly better for the climate, it still never should have been built in the first place because it disrespects tribal sovereignty. They built a pipeline right through their land, not even telling them when they were doing that. They did that using the equivalent of a sewer permit. So not only did they not consult, they didn't even tell them it was happening. And when they showed up and tried to stop it, some of them got arrested. And that's the kind of thing that happens with fossil fuel projects that we can't allow to happen. We need them to be looking at community impacts. With LNG also, it's going to be a major source of air pollution to a community that's already overburdened. And so what we need to tell the Department of Ecology when we show up to this is that, yes, of course, we need to use current science, but we also need to be looking at these projects through the lens of climate justice. And so that's why we need to show up, and that's why they need to hear from us. And so I want to turn it over now to Darren and Benita Moore, who are the founders of NativeDaily Network, and they can tell us exactly what it's like to be on the front lines and to be in a community that's being targeted by the fossil fuel industry. So I will now turn it over. I'll stop sharing and turn it over to Benita and Darren.
You know, I it's kind of weird for somebody who does a lot of media, but I really don't like speaking publicly, and I get really nervous. And so sometimes I'm overconfident beforehand, and I'll walk up to a microphone and then start gibbering on about nothing because I just get so nervous. And so it's kind of funny that it chose to mute me for a moment. Maybe it was helping me catch my breath. So I just want to thank you guys for inviting us tonight. You know, we've had a 4-year relationship with 350 Seattle, and yeah, but you know, it's we should have been in sooner, and I know we've been invited a few times and just haven't made it. So I'm glad to be here. And I like to think that relationship has been kind of built because, you know, our work intersects, and you know, we have the same goals and visions, and so I just really love you guys, and you've been our biggest supporters really since the start. And so it's a pleasure to be here tonight. One little quick shout out before I get going. I just you know, I see Val's here. So we worked with Carlo and Val a lot in 2017 on the LNG, and they taught us so much. You know, these guys are legends for us. You know, they're so sharp, and they know exactly how this game is played, particularly on the front lines and the direct action. So if you really want advice, you've already got the best people, and then after that, yeah, and well, there's so many, you know, but really I want to give a shout out to Stacey Oakes, and it's kind of a recognition here in Tacoma that at times, you know, the grassroots movement to fight the LNG, Stacey's kind of held it on her own, and you know, like the groups here get disinterested and busy with other things. It's been a 4-year battle, and people have lives, you know, and things happen, but Stacey's been there, and she's got this this skill, and she keeps people invested, she keeps people interested, she keeps us connected, you know, and you know, and she invited me tonight, so I got to say something nice, and wasn't just that, Stacey, but you know, we do appreciate you, and I just want to take the opportunity to tell you. that. So yeah, so you know, we speak. Thank you, Benita. we speak down here. You know, we're on. I'm glad Shimona did the land acknowledgement earlier. I really appreciate how in depth you went and sharing the website Native Land CA. It's such an important resource. It's really cool. And you know, down here we're on Puyallup land and the land of the Spiollibobs, and actually a few other nations which are actually mentioned in the Medicine Creek Treaty, like the Stillacan people. Yeah, and so you know, it's kind of convenient being an activist native media to have an urban tribe that are right next to one of the most polluted places in the world. I don't want to make that out to be a positive, but at the same time, it's allowed us to really kind of amplify their message, you know, and be part, you know, and also have the vested interest that we live here too. And, you know, this project affects us, so there's that personal touch. And it goes right back to the beginning of this project. And, you know, we talk about we're talking tonight about the new rules, and Neil brought up tribal consultation, and which is a passion for us. And right at the beginning of this project, it was Ecology passing the rights to make the first environmental impact statement to the city of Tacoma, where that rule that allowed the city to take it. In fact, it's a rule within Ecology that allows the city to say, hey, we can take that off you. And it's one of those rules that's written, that sounds great on paper. It's like, hey, you know, this will streamline the process. This will make it easier to, you know, less bureaucracy, less money, less involvement. But really what it means is we can bypass rules, and we can leapfrog certain processes and get a project to the point where it's already legally happening before most people are even aware. And that's what, you know, these rules and how they've been written. And so we have to be really kind of careful, you know, about what we accept as a minimum, you know, what's minimum to us, you know, and we have to look at these rules and say, you know, honestly, what could happen is that, you know, it might sound like a simple concession, but, you know, that was a concession about allowing, you know, cities to take the right to be the SEPA agent. And so you know, that's got us to where we are. And but Ecology, you know, we have to hold them to account here, because, you know, they can hide behind that rule, but that would be disingenuous on their part. They had another play in this. There was 2 more permits that they had to approve later on for the Army Corps of Engineers to give their permit, and Ecology had to pass these 2 permits. And at that time, they had to consider the environmental impact statement that was written by the city of Tacoma. So their excuses that it was nothing to do with them was lost at that point, because they passed those permits. Right, and so with tribal consultation, there is now a policy in place, not law, but a policy with the Attorney General. It was last May, or May, 2019, a couple of Mays ago now. I lost last year. I think
2019,
yeah. But it was a full prior informed consent decree, an FPIC decree, with tribal nations. And so if any major project or event is going to happen that has material effect on them, they are, you know, informed, and the consent is required. So, but that's only an advisory, and I really think that FPIC, as it's already something that's codified and written, I think there's a really good possibility of having Ecology write FPIC into the new rules. And if we can just go, you know, and it's already there, so it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. You know, and so we get that, and it's already at the Attorney General's office. So I think that's where the pressure starts, right? We need to talk to the Attorney General and say, hey, you've got this rule. Ecology are rewriting theirs. We need your voice to advocate for that rule to be included into the new Ecology rules, because then we're not going to be in this situation, because before they can pass that SEPA agency right to one city, they're going to have to say, well, who does it affect? It affects a tribe, but the tribe gets first stab at it. You know, and then we wouldn't be seeing an LNG plan on the edge of a reservation. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Benita. That's me.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting us here tonight, relatives. Hauma Takiapi, Inichiapi, Benita Moore, and Petu Wash Day. Have a good day, and Happy Wash Day. I'm still learning my language, but I do know this one because I'm on Puyallup territory and I knew more about their language. Haxlahel. So, relatives, I'm from Standing Rock Nation and I'm enrolled there, and I've been there all my life. My mom and dad are both enrolled there and they grew up on the res. And so we call that home, even though my grandmother and grandfather were relocated over here. That was part of the assimilation process to make us all like westernized, I guess, you know, colonized. And it didn't work very well. But so we did lose our language and stuff. And so I'm in the process of turning to the youth. What Standing Rock did teach while we were there was like to the 7th generation, turn to the 7th generation. And one of the things that, you know, to back up what Darren said about the consultation process and stuff, what I would like to exhort you guys all to do is, if you have any questions about the land you're on, about not just the history of that land for generations. I mean, you've heard lots of us speak about, we've been here since time immemorial. Well, I haven't. I'm a guest on this land, but as a guest, I talk to the people who this land belongs to, and ask them, you know, what would they do to fix it? What would they do to bring back the salmon? What would they do to bring back fresh water? And there's not really that much they can do. We can never return to where we were, but we can, with all your help, relatives, we can return to green energy. And that's where I'm at right now. You guys, we talk about this New Deal and everything, and how we need to be there in May, you know, and speak up on that public hearing, and we'll all be there. But I would like to bring a contingency of natives there too, while we think about it, because, you know, we're invisible. We're pretty invisible. We hear about, you know, BLM and the BIPOC, but really, you know, there's a strong indigenous population in Seattle. Talk to one of them about the environment. Go to the, you know, visit like the different, what is the name of that? Affiliated tribes.
Yeah.
Speak with them. You know, they all have something going, and we all need to join together on that. And that's something we should be looking forward to, or looking to do before May, you know, before this all comes up. Actually, before March, we have, isn't it this month, or April is it, when we do the,
what?
With Earth Justice.
Oh, the court case for the
the court case for the LNG. Yeah, and anyway, so I just wanted to say hello and to encourage you all to speak to the indigenous and to join together with them whenever possible. And that's what NativeDaily Network was formed for. We realized that we had nothing representing us. You know, we were laying in bed one night and just clicking on the TV, and I said, there's nothing native on TV, nothing at all. And we need to fix that. Let's, you know, I mean, there's BET, Black Entertainment Network. I love it, you know, and so, but right when we did that, when we started it in February of 2016, Standing Rock broke out. And it was almost like the universe or the creator said, well, here's where I want you to look, Benita, you know, and look at home And I got over there and I seen the fight that they were throwing pipelines in under our Missouri River, Lake Oahe, you know, and I seen the grief in my people. I seen them fighting with everything they had, you know, in court and in prayer and in, you know, standoffs with the hired military, you know, and they got it. They got the oil running through it. And so we came back here and we seen that they're built. We were part of the methanol, but the end part of the, you know, helping to defeat the methanol plant that was going up in Tacoma, the port of Tacoma. And when we came back, we seen that the LNG was part of that project. They were supposed to go hand in hand. And, you know, they decided, well, we're still going to put the LNG up because it's a bridge fuel, you know, and that's how we're going to present it. It's natural and stuff. And so the fight has been going on for 4 years. And we just don't stop. We can't stop.
5 years. Right?
5 years. It's going on the 5th year now. Yeah. And just before, one of the things I want to give, I was so unprepared for this tonight, but one of the things that I want to give kudos to Stacy for is getting us that meeting with Governor Inslee,
yeah,
where we got to bring in Annette Bryan, you know, a councilwoman for the Puyallup tribe, and Paul Chilton Wagner. I know a lot of you guys know him, you know, from Protectors of the Salish Sea, Darren, me, Dakota Case, who, if you ever watched Ancestral Waters, you know who Dakota is, and a bunch of others went in there and we got to speak. What was it? A whole bunch. It was just like 15 of us or so. And we got to speak to Governor Inslee, and we told him some things that he had never heard before. You know, basically we told him that that's protected land. That is still Medicine Creek Treaty land. And he was like, well, I have to look that up. And then we told him that Annette should have had a red carpet rolled out for her when she walked into that room. Because her, you know, she's right here with you, Governor. You know, as far as dignitary, she's right there. And you never see that because we're a sovereign nation. You know, and Puyallup is a sovereign nation. Standing Rock is a sovereign nation. And that's how it needs to be approached. And that's how it needs to stay, you know. And we consider all you guys our relatives. When we call you Mitakeapi, that's my relatives. That's it. I think that's it.
You know, I just kind of want to say something on that. One of the things, Benita, that you mentioned was about speaking to, which is really good advice, is people speaking to Native people they know and asking them what they would do, you know, and what drives them. And I think one of the things most people will learn, or who have spent time around Native people will learn, is it's about the connection to all things. And, you know, whilst on a spiritual level, we can't expect everyone to subscribe to that. You know, I think that if everyone could understand that, we will have an interdependence on all living things, you know, that we need each other. And that's kind of where this, the education part of this fight, if people can see cause and effect, and we're never in a time of greater need to show that. So it's going to be, we just need to start pulling the examples when we turn on the TV and we see another forest burning, and we need to make sure that people are aware this is a cause and effect. This isn't just a bad thing happening now. This happened because of decisions made 20, 30, 40 years ago because people forgot that they depended on those things. You know, and so let's remind, you know, let's remind each other that we depend on all things. Okay, well, great, thank you. Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you so much, Darren and Benita, for coming and sharing a little bit about your stories, and for all the nice words. I appreciate you guys so much. I think we're going to kind of transition into just a little bit of what you can do and how you can plug into this. I think Neil's going to be able to pop us back up our slides for just a moment. Not very many more, I promise. And so just kind of a recap of some of the things that we can do is clearly we need to urge to have the acknowledge and uphold our treaty rights. Community health assessments is, again, something else that would really make a difference in being able for communities to stand up for themselves. If you've learned anything, about Tacoma over the last few years, following these fights, it's that the Tacoma LNG isn't alone. There's already so many polluting facilities down on the port, and they keep looking to expand. And as Neil said, potentially even start to try and do exports or shipping more things by rail that are dangerous. And all of those facilities don't just make greenhouse gases, they make air pollution that hurts people too. And currently, within our laws, within our permit processes, there's no point where they actually measure the human impacts. There's no point where we measure the health impacts. And so that's something we need to push for really strongly in these new rules, and things like cumulative impacts. Instead of just looking at one project at a time, they should look at, if I was standing right here as a person, how much pollution am I taking in? And we have to care about who's on the extraction end and the human impacts that are happening there too. And so we need to push for life cycle analysis of both human and greenhouse gas impacts. Would definitely be continuing to help people out with talking points and deep specifics and all of that. So if you didn't catch all of kind of those deeper talking points tonight, we're going to continue to share out materials, so don't worry. I think we can go ahead and go to the next slide, Neil. And so I bet all of you are like, yes, how can I help? Set me loose on this. And so we would love for folks to get involved even further than just being ready to show up at the hearing in May. We want you to do that. But also, again, we need to show up super strong if we want them to go above what they've already decided to do. If we want them to look at community health, treaty rights, we have to show up strong. So we need help getting the word out there. We need people to help do outreach in all kinds of different ways. We have some art we'd like to maybe create and some cool demonstrations that we need people power to do. We have some tools for letter writing. We could use some letters to the editor, some op-eds, all kinds of stuff. We need you to tell your friends, right? Everybody that lives in Washington, this affects you. And so we just need everybody to kind of help. And in the chat, we have Renaissance dropped in a link to a little Google form, just gives us your information to contact you. And there's some little boxes that you can check on how you would like to plug in so that we can contact you and help bring you deeper into this fight. And we really appreciate it. We need all of you. So fill out the form. And cool, I think we can go to the next spot there. I think it's just ready for potentially question time. We don't have a ton of time left in our hour, so we won't have time for a lot of questions. But also, I think that potentially Neil and myself can both drop our emails in the chat. So if you do have any problems with the form, or if you did have questions that don't get answered today, we're happy to follow up with you on those. And yeah. Does anybody have any burning questions right this moment? Should be a little raise hand button, or if you can't find that button, you can turn on your camera and wave frantically.
And let me add one more thing. If you're wondering how you would get the information you need to make a comment, I'd said that there are webinars. We're going to include links to those, to the registration for them in the email that goes out after this. And there will also be comment workshops. If you go to those, you'll get the information on how to go to them.
Okay. And if you're having problems with the form not letting you in, oh, and think we had a different, sorry, we sent the wrong link out first. So never mind that first link, and Renaissance just dropped another link in the chat. So hopefully that one works good. And for anybody also wanting to know any more about the Tacoma LNG resistance, we do actually have every other week, we have 350 Seattle team meetings. And the next one is actually tomorrow at noon. So we'll drop the registration link in the chat for that also in a moment. And would love to see you there. And you can also highly recommend checking out NativeDaily Network's website, which has not only access to their documentary about the Tacoma LNG, really from a tribal perspective, but it also has a ton of videos, articles, beautiful photography. If you're feeling so called, you could even drop a little donation in there for them. They are a 501c3 charity. And yeah, maybe if anybody else has other like love that they want to share to NativeDaily Network in the chat, feel free to drop it in there and we'll make sure this gets shared afterwards so they can see all the lovely words. And yeah, I don't know, we had originally planned to close out with another song. I know we're right up at the edge of time, so I don't know if we're still gonna do that and just go over a minute or two, or if we want to call it a meeting. Yes?
Yeah, we'll end with a song, and for those of you that need to hop, we wish you well.
Okay.
But sorry, Benita, go ahead.
Just one thing I want to mention, throughout since probably around 2018, maybe 2017 until present, I want to give a couple shout outs to all the people at Power Pass Frac Gas and Columbia River Keepers and all the people that have been a part of this coalition to strengthen our resolve to stop this. So if any of you guys are here or you know any of them, please tell them that I give them much kudos, that I haven't forgotten them. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Benita. We'll definitely pass that on. And I will follow up with resources also, and like Stacy and Neil's emails too, so you can ask the questions later on. And then I think I just want to say thank you everyone for being here. We will close out with a song, but for those of you who need to hop right away, we wish you well and have a good evening, and hopefully see you next month. And with that, I will pass it on to Bex to close us out with a song.
Thank you so much, Shimona and Neil and Stacy and Benita and Darren. So thank you so much. This song that we're going to end with is called Move Up. The lyrics are in the chat. It's pretty short and repetitive. I think you'll get the hang of it. There's two parts to it. The first part's a little slower, and then the second part will probably have you dancing out. That's my hope. So here is Move Up. The eyes of our children are upon you. Time to wake up. Time to wake up. We'll change this course with or without you. Won't let up. Won't let up. The eyes of our children are upon you. Time to wake up. Time to wake up. We'll change this course with or without you. Won't let up. Won't let up. The eyes of our children are upon you. Time to wake up. Time to wake up. We'll change this course with or without you. Won't let up. Won't let up. 5, 6, 7, 8. Move up or step aside. 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 Thank you, everyone, for all of your work, for singing, for being here.
Yes, thank you.